Hello, World Wide Web. Welcome back to the Hangin with Web show live. I'm WWI Pomichter, and we are at Fantasm, Orlando. We are hanging out right now with Robert and Heidi Pandis, the creators of vintage Halloween trick-or-treat traditions. Tricks, treats, and traditions. All of the things for Halloween. Guys, thanks for coming and hanging out with us. First of all, how are you? How's the show going for you this weekend, guys?
Pretty good.
Pretty good, yeah?
It was a short fused notice for us, so we've come up for a day and a half.
And where are y'all from?
We live in St. Pete Beach, Florida.
Okay, St. Pete Beach, all right. And vintage Halloween trick-or-treats and traditions. Where did this idea come from? Or was just you're sitting around going, there's a lot of things out there that, what inspired you to put this together in a volume?
Right. Well, we trick-or-treated in the 60s, and that was really part of the golden era of trick-or-treating when kids would go out and trick-or-treat in a traditional sense. But as we've become older, trick-or-treating has changed a lot, where kids are not really allowed out to trick-or-treat now.
Yeah, there's a lot of places doing one location. There's just a lot of safety concerns.
And a lot of parental supervision.
I don't actually know if you guys were any safer back then, or if we just didn't know about the stuff.
I think we just didn't know about it. But we would run wild, and we would be out, and we'd be without our parents, and we'd get home late at night.
What he's trying to say, everybody, is he was in trouble a lot. Well, you just didn't catch him.
True,
yeah.
And there were a lot more things that happened after Halloween was over, like pumpkins that were smashed or tricks that were actually played on some of the neighbors. It didn't go over well.
At that time.
Yes.
Right.
So
wow. Yeah. So are these just anecdotes? What do we have here? What are we looking at?
Well, the book is really it's a boutique art book. So it's a very high quality production. It's got a crepe paper textured cover. It's very thick art paper. It's an offset printing, and it's meant to be a very visual book. But it's got vignettes of history, lore. It's got poems, some which Heidi has written.
Awesome.
And short stories. But yeah, it's a classic coffee table book. It's a decoration in itself. And it's just meant to be enjoyed. And you just put it on the table. Some people keep it out all year round.
It's definitely a book for all ages. As a matter of fact, I think one of the things that we've enjoyed the most by selling this book and putting it out there is just watching the faces of people when they open it up. I don't care what age you are. The more you look, the more you want to see. Because it's so interesting.
It was a time, and it wasn't that long ago, when people looked at Halloween as more of, in those transitional years, a kid's holiday. The little kids, they went trick-or-treating, or their moms and dads walked them around. Now they have trunk-or-treat. If they go to one place and they just go to cars. Mm-hmm. It's like going to a drive-in back in the day, only, there's candy. But today, and here, we're at Fantasm. There aren't a lot of kids here, guys.
Yeah.
Well, there are a lot of kids here. They're just over 20.
Yeah.
And some are over 30, and you guys get the math. Anyway, we're a lot of kids, but we're not all 10 anymore. So, and Halloween has really opened up. It's become, we were talking earlier to someone on the show, it's become almost a season of itself now.
Right.
And it's celebrated by all ages. And so that's something that you guys are able to do in pictures, and share, and decor. Because again, like you said, it's classic. Welcome to the Halloween season. Here's our book. That's great. That's a great little idea. What made you guys want to put this together?
I think really because Halloween has changed so very much that we were afraid part of it was slipping away. We wanted people to be able to open a book like this and recapture some of the memories that just seeing a paper pumpkin that was hung maybe in your classroom at school just brings back that flood of emotions.
They don't do that at school anymore, do they? They don't do Halloween at all at school anymore.
They don't.
I remember we used to go from classroom to classroom trick-or-treating. Like the Friday before Halloween or the Monday, whatever Halloween was coming,
And we would have the Halloween parades where you'd all wear costumes and you'd parade around the running track at school, and they'd award prizes. you'd have to give Halloween cards to everybody in your class.
I remember, yeah.
So you remember that?
Yeah.
And
Halloween, Valentine's Day, all of the what are considered on the calendar the minor holidays were big deals at school because they were a day at school when you had to go. It wasn't a day off, but there was always a festivity to go with it.
Right.
And that was kind of cool as a kid. And yeah, they don't anymore. They don't do a lot of that now.
No, they don't. But we've captured a lot of it in this book through pictures and illustrations and stories. So I think it's a happy book. People, they smile when they read it. It's for people of all ages. Our granddaughter, 3-year-old, she loves it.
Now, did you guys shoot the pictures, or did it collected the pictures from other photographers, or
I did all the photography.
Awesome.
I did all the layout, all the editing. I do everything but print it, so I self-publish. And we actually have a Instagram page for the book called @Vintage Halloween Book. So it's pretty easy. So we have a lot of people that follow this book and comment on it.
How long has the book been out now?
Oh, it's new. It came out in about January, February, just this year. So this is the first Halloween that's been available.
It's inaugural Halloween on those coffee tables, right? Indeed. What was now when you put together? You said some vignettes and poems and some short stories, some anecdotes, Halloween anecdotes to go with your photos. You guys are steeped in the Halloween traditions you grew up on, and that we had when we were younger. And of course, you've watched and seen what the traditions are that the kids have. But you had to look back a little bit too. Are you Halloween? Are you Halloween fans? Do you enjoy the season?
Well, we are, and we actually learned about Halloween ourselves, some of the origins. As a matter of fact, we didn't realize that at the beginning, around probably the 1910, 1920s, Halloween was more of a house party for adults.
Yeah.
Back a long time ago, and we actually.
What was the most interesting thing you learned in the research about the holiday and the traditions? What was the most interesting tradition that you can kind of give us a taste of?
Well, what I think is, to me, the most interesting is the Celtic origin of the holiday. The real, what has become or evolved to be Halloween, started as a Celtic pagan tradition. And the date was tied to the seasons and the transition of summer to winter, and salmon, which the original Halloween was called salmon. And that has evolved over the years, and through the adoption of Christianity and Christian.
Yeah, I have to say this: the Catholic Church is the most prolific cultural appropriator on the planet, and is responsible for many of our current holidays because of that cultural appropriation. If rather than going in and saying you're doing it wrong, stop doing it, they just said you're doing it for this reason.
Right.
And they just gave you a new reason to do the same thing.
Embraced it and made it their own.
It was and so much of what we know as culture today is built around that idea. So good on you guys. The whole burning people thing, that was a bad idea. Don't do that again. But other than that, the rest of the appropriation we're enjoying. So if you were to look back at a tradition that you guys found out about while you're researching the book and doing things like that and saying, wow, that sounds kind of cool. That would be a nice tradition for Halloween today. Something that's been lost. What would you say?
I guess I would say we were in Germany, and we found a lot of the origins of the witches came from the Brocken Mountains, which are in Germany. And the witches in the fall would get together and they would do a dance. Do they still carry on today? In what's the name of the city?
Well, in the Brocken Mountains, in the Harz.
Wow.
The Brocken Peak and the Harz Mountains.
All about a witch's dance, guys. Town hall, witch's dance. Let's get it going. You? Do you have
for me, I because these traditions were initially brought to North America by the Irish and Scottish settlers. They brought the Celtic pagan traditions to the U.S. And in the early 1700s or so, there were a lot of traditions where ladies would gather by the fireplace and they would place chestnuts next to each other in front of the fire, and they would use it as a way to determine potential matches with other men in the community.
Oh, wow.
And they may name a chestnut and put it next to each other, and when it pops, if it would move away from the other chestnut, it would imply that that was maybe a bad match. And if it popped and they stayed together, it may be a good match. So a lot of pagan superstition.
So
and
a little
the
holiday matchmaking there, a little
Right,
Halloween,
and
Halloween speed dating.
Yeah, and bobbing for apples. A lot of it was based on who would be your match.
I'm watching. Look, I don't know about the 1700s, but if that the tradition existed today, there are a lot of guys that are out there. They're putting super glue on chestnuts. They're like, no, man, I got this. You know. So I mean, we'll work hard.
Right.
Can we get a peek?
Sure.
They're closed.
There you
I
go.
don't want to.
Go ahead. Andy.
Yeah.
No, they're not close.
Oh, they're not. Okay, good. We want to give a little bit of a peek. We have over here. We got this camera over here. Yeah. Let's go ahead and grab that camera shot. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Those are. Oh my.
Now these are the holy grail for Halloween collectors. These are the early from about 1904, 1905, Toledo, Ohio, Tim lanterns, and they would carry these in parades. But these are fairly rare and fairly pricey. But if you're a collector, that's what you're looking for.
Wow, that's awesome.
And these are candy containers from Germany, very popular in the 1920s, 1930s. Poems, little Halloween vignettes.
That is
costumes, clown
classic
costumes
costume.
were.
Those clowns are far less creepy than the clowns that are walking around here.
Right, right.
Yeah.
You know, at some point, the clowns became the creepy clowns. So.
Yeah. Which, by the way, guys, clowns themselves are pretty creepy. You don't really need to do anything to that. Wow,
so
guys,
you can
this
see
is fantastic.
It's a lot of imagery, and these are historical pictures. But we get tattoo artists love the book because they get ideas for
new art,
artwork.
yeah.
So we'll start seeing some of these critters appearing in ink pretty soon. The goths like it, the haunters like it. Most of these books are bought by young people under the age of 20. Young people really like vintage Halloween.
It is, because that's what I think. Isn't that what draws us to it? Is the nostalgia.
Yes.
Of the Halloween was always really, really super cool. When I was a kid, I loved going trick or treating. Like you said, it was kind of a free for all night. A great time to get out of the house and go run the streets with your friends, and the only time Mom saw you was after you came home with only half the candy that you got came home with you, and then they had to check it.
They had to check it.
They only checked half because the other half was already gone.
Right, and we would use pillowcases because the point was to get so much candy a paper bag would break.
Mm-hmm.
So you would use a
concern.
cloth pillowcase, and you would not stop until people put out the jack-o'-lanterns.
That is awesome. Well, we have to wrap it up here, and as we do, we love to leave them on the live broadcast. We want to leave them with a .com so they can find you guys. Okay, and then we're going to put links below in the YouTube video when we do this. But on the live broadcast right now, we want to leave them with the .com so they can go over there and find vintage Halloween tricks, treats, and traditions. So, guys, it's on you.
So at Vintage Halloween Book, Instagram, or ImperialHouseAntiques.com.
Out, ImperialHouseAntiques.com, or over on Instagram at Vintage Halloween. Yes,
that's it.
Vintage Halloween Book.
Vintage Halloween Book. There you go. Absolutely, guys. We've been hanging out with Robert and Heidi Pandis, the creators of Vintage Halloween Tricks, Treats, and Traditions, the book. Follow them on Instagram. Check them out. If you're going to catch this on the YouTube feed, we are going to drop links in the description down below so you can find them. Check out this book for your Halloween tradition. Put it out. Show the kids. Kids love this stuff. And then don't feel bad when they do it next year, because they will. Cosplay Michael is not here right now because I don't want Cosplay Michael to know the Halloween traditions that we had when we were kids. So, but guys, thank you guys so much for logging on and tuning in. Thank you to all of our partners and friends at Famous Faces and Funnies, Space Coast Comics, Indie Originals, of course, our great friends at the Foxwood Wine Company, Hearts Helping Others of Central Florida, for all the work you do, Families Helping Families, Embellish Effects, and of course, our good friend Josh Bauer with J. Bauer Art for all the art on the set. We're going to be going back to him on the live feed, guys. You're going to go back to Josh and check him out on the live feed. He's live painting from here at Fantasm Orlando. Stay tuned in, stay logged on, and see who we're hanging with next. Bye, guys.